Welcome to the Metro Monk Podcast, your sanctuary for self-discovery, personal growth, and emotional healing. I'm your host, Parag Lokande, a shadow coach, spiritual mentor, seeker, poet, and a student of life. This podcast is a heartfelt journey into understanding and embracing your true self. It is designed to help you navigate the complexities of the human experience with wisdom and compassion. Join me on a journey to self-discovery and personal growth as we explore the power of self-healing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Metro Monk Podcast. This is episode 40 and I'm your host Parag. Today we are going to build on the conversation we started in our previous episode. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I would recommend you go back and then come to this one after. In the previous episode, you may remember we've explored how suppressing parts of ourselves then leads us to live in sort of an inverted reality of those very parts. This is where the concept of mirrors even comes into play, and these inverted realities are essentially reflections in life's mirrors, and they're showing us what we've buried or ignored. Today then, I want to dive into how we often end up dealing with these inverted realities instead of addressing the root cause. We keep trying to fix them, but in doing so, we often make things worse rather than healing from them. What's fascinating is that once we begin to truly heal, these situations start to just shift on their own without us having to force or control anything, without us having to even change anything. Over time, it becomes almost impossible to attract the same challenges back into our lives. So consider this episode a bit of a secret sauce for tackling life's real challenges, real problems, and eventually stopping them from recurring completely. Now, I'm not talking about problems like becoming a millionaire. Those are different stories. I'm referring to deeper issues like self-worth, abundance, and emotional patterns that hold us back. What I'll be sharing today is something I've discovered through my own journey of shadow work. For a long time, I honestly was very skeptical about these changes that I was experiencing. And I was wondering if I was just making things up, or this was all just a coincidences or a fate or whatever we like to call it. But you see, after nearly a decade of doing this, working with my shadows, having things change again and again, I've seen profound changes directly tied to the healing I've done. So this episode is sort of based on my own personal observation and transformations that I've witnessed, as well as the transformations that my clients have witnessed around the shadows they've healed and how lives change for them as well. Now, obviously, this isn't a perfect science. It's not like it's not linear or black and white, but the principles of law of attraction and vibration are deeply connected to what I'm going to be talking today. So think of this as an invitation to stay curious rather than taking it as an absolute truth. After all, I believe only when you experience something for yourself, it becomes truth. Until then, it's just someone else's truth, or maybe even a story for you. So let's revisit the idea of being stuck in an inverted reality. You see, what many people might call life, fate, or even it is what it is really what I call being stuck in an inverted, unwanted reality. You see, we pour our energy into dealing with such inverted reality time and time again, making compromises or simply accepting it as the way things are. But I'm not talking about the parts of life you love. Of course, why would you want to change those, right? I'm referring to those things that you don't love. We all have those situations or relationships or challenges that feel like it is like that inverted reality we're desperately trying to fix, hoping it'll just disappear. These are the things we dislike, or often referred to as life, or fate, or even it is what it is, and then we just shrug our shoulders and keep moving. But trying to change these challenges is like wanting your reflection in the mirror to smile at you. It's not going to happen unless you change first. Let's look at this with the help of an example. And I wanted to really unpack this one example down to a very granular level. Now, we've looked at similar examples in the previous episode, but I thought I'll look at one example and really dissect it in many different ways so as to give everyone an appreciation of what this whole phenomena looks like. So let's look at one such example. Picture someone who embodies the mother archetype. And the mother archetype is a person who is naturally very nurturing, selfless, devoted to caring for others. They might be a parent or partner. We might even come across individuals in the world being as nurses or caregivers, etc. Or even a friend who always puts others' needs before their own. On the surface, they seem like the epitome of love and sacrifice. But deep down, and again, not trying to generalize, but this is mostly the case, deep down, they feel drained, unappreciated, and resentful. They suppress their own needs and desires because they believe their job, their role, is to give endlessly without receiving in return. So then, they naturally attract situations where they feel overburdened, taken for granted, or even powerless. They might try to fix this by giving even more, or hoping that their sacrifices will eventually be recognized, or even reciprocated. But instead, they only feel more exhausted and unseen. So let's take this fictitious character, Michelle. Michelle is a deeply loving and nurturing person, almost like a mother to everyone around her. Her friends adore her warmth, kindness, thoughtfulness. She goes out of her way to make people seen and heard, always putting others first. However, this giving nature also makes her an overgiver, a perfectionist, and someone who constantly pushes herself to do more. Despite this, she has a strong circle of friends and family who rely on her deeply and need her intensely. So for years, Michelle has found purpose and joy in serving those she loves. And since it's such a big thing, it's a big value for Michelle, it's a joy for her to be who she's being. You see, caring for others brings her genuine happiness, and she often acts selflessly. But then over time, she begins to feel drained, neglecting her own needs, and she may not even realize it. Many a times this dynamic can extend into marriages as well. So let's say this has happened to Michelle, and she has also attracted a narcissistic husband who is manipulative and controlling, who slowly sort of wears her down. And eventually, Michelle reaches a breaking point. Secretly, she thinks about leaving her husband. She also considers withdrawing from friends and family who have unknowingly become like dependent on her love and care without recognizing her own needs. So Michelle's identity is sort of woven into her role as the nurturer. She feels alive when she's needed, when people look up to her, when she's the one holding everything together. She just loves to be that. But now she's exhausted. Over time, she's feeling like she's trapped in the impossible choice between caring for others and caring for herself. And she naturally feels torn, stuck, and hopeless. The mother archetype represents nurturing, compassion, and unconditional love. However, when this archetype is out of balance, its shadow side can manifest in ways that create an inverted reality, just like what's happened to Michelle. So this is Michelle's inverted reality, or that reflection in the mirror of life. Now, just like everyone, it's very common. Michelle is going to try to fix this inverted reality of her life. And she might use various coping mechanisms. Michelle is trying her best to see if she can make this reflection smile, in other words. Let's say Michelle tells herself that if I love harder, or give more, or fix people, then they'll finally appreciate me. Or she secretly hopes that a narcissistic partner will change if she was just good enough, taking on the role of the healer or rescuer, thinking I can make others whole, whatever. And when trying that doesn't work, maybe she tries avoiding or withdrawing from the world out of anger, or sometimes trying to numb herself, sometimes turning to alcohol or drugs. Sometimes she even tries to deal with her inverted reality by taking on more responsibilities, thinking that, okay, if I hold everything together, I won't lose my place in others' lives. When that doesn't work, she tries staying busy with work, or maybe even hobbies, or there's an endless to-do list to avoid facing her feelings of exhaustion and emptiness. Or when that doesn't work, she tries overthinking. She thinks if I were better, stronger, more loving, then everything would be okay. So she's overanalyzing every interaction, trying to be perfect so no one is disappointed. This is what most spiritual traditions have referred to as suffering. You see, no amount of problem solving or ideas or coping mechanisms is going to make that reflection in the mirror smile. Unless Michelle takes a look at herself, at her shadows, and try and heal everything that is causing this inverted image in her life. Okay, let's see what that could look like. Let's see what is causing this inverted image for Michelle. We know about this reflection. We've just talked about the reflection. Let's now look at the shadow. The mother archetype is a powerful force of creation, care, and unconditional love when it is of a higher expression. It represents nurturing, protection, and deep emotional connection. So it's highly likely or highly probable that is who Michelle is as her higher self. But when this archetype is out of balance, and often because of trauma or what's happened to us in our environment or childhood, its shadow side emerges. And this expression, this higher expression, now starts to reflect in Michelle's life through her lower filters as her lower expression. And this starts distorting love into over-responsibility, self-sacrifice, and martyrdom. In Michelle's case, the shadow of the mother has trapped her in a cycle where she believes love is earned through giving rather than something she inherently deserves. She fears disappointing or abandoning others, even at the cost of abandoning herself. She struggles with receiving support or even feeling guilty when she's prioritizing her needs, or maybe asserts her needs sometimes out of anger, resentment, or frustration. She then keeps unconsciously attracting relationships that reinforce this over-giving tendency. The mother archetype often operates under deeply ingrained beliefs that keeps the individual stuck in this inverted reality. And some of those limiting beliefs are, for example, I'm only valuable if I'm needed. These individuals believe their worth is tied to their ability to care for others, leading them to overextend themselves. Or another belief could be, if I don't sacrifice, I'm selfish. In this case, the individual equates self-care with selfishness, making it difficult for them to prioritize their own needs. Or another belief could be love must be earned through suffering. So in this case, the individual might believe that they must endure hardship to prove their love or worthiness. Another belief could be, I am responsible for everyone's happiness. So in this case then, they take on emotional burden of others, believing it's their duty to fix everyone's problems. The mother archetype also often suppresses certain emotions to maintain their role as a caregiver. These blocked emotions can include anger. So at times they might suppress their anger because they believe it's unloving or unmotherly to express it. And then naturally this leads to passive-aggressive behavior or an internalized resentment. Another emotion that goes hand in hand is grief. They might suppress their grief over lost opportunities, unmet needs, or lack of reciprocity from their relationships. A third emotion that often accompanies the mother archetype is fear of abandonment. They might suppress their feeling of being alone or unloved, leading them to overgive in an attempt to secure love and connection. Many times, this can also make them an anxious type in the relationship because they have a fear of abandonment. There's also a desire for independence. They might suppress their own desire for freedom, creativity, or personal growth because they feel guilty for wanting something outside of their caregiving role. And then this naturally leads to them attracting an avoidant partner because the avoidant partner embodies this desire of independence. You see, all these shadows are creating an inverted reality in Michelle's life. Why, you may ask? It's because her unconscious is trying to heal that shadow. And one of the ways this happens is we keep attracting situations, peoples, and themes in our lives that makes us feel all that we are suppressing. So Michelle keeps experiencing things in her life that bring up the anger, bring up the grief, bring up the fear of abandonment. And the more it comes up, the more she tries to deal with it through all sorts of coping mechanisms, hoping it'll go away. And you guessed it, unless Michelle actually faces her shadows, feels all that fear of abandonment, feels all that grief of the possibility of abandoning everyone in her life, including the grief of her abandoning herself, all that anger of giving up on herself, all that anger of giving up her needs. Until she does that, Michelle has no chance, as things will only get worse. Now, you might say, Parag, no one wants to do that. This is hard, too painful. It can feel like it's endless. Well, to that I can say, just look at Michelle's life. It has become everything that. Painful, hard, and I'm sure she feels like this is endless. You see, just cause we can avoid the pain of our emotions does not mean we won't suffer from other things due to that. I mean, look around. People are busy dealing with a different kind of pain instead of that. They are busy dealing with chronic tension, migraines, back pains from storing unprocessed emotions. They're dealing with the pain of autoimmune diseases or gut issues, often linked to stress. They're dealing with insomnia, lying awake, restless because their mind refuses to shut down. The endless pursuit of biohacking, ice baths, extreme fitness, and not for joy, but as a way to control what feels chaotic inside. Moreover, they are also dealing with the pain of their mind, overthinking everything, playing out conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, living in constant busyness, because slowing down means they will actually have to feel. Or becoming self-help addicts, reading every book, taking every course, yet never actually, sitting with what's inside. Or what about the pain of relationships, attracting emotionally unavailable partners over and over again, or feeling disconnected in friendships because we don't know how to be fully seen, resenting the very people we love because we keep giving when we have nothing left. Or what about the pain of addiction and escape using food, alcohol, or social media to numb emotions that we refuse to process? Jumping from one relationship to another to avoid sitting with loneliness. Becoming a workaholic because being needed at work is easier than feeling unworthy in one's personal life. All this really is so nothing compared to simply facing our fears of your shadows. So yes, doing this work is hard, but so is suffering in silence. The question isn't, is this work painful? The question is, which pain do you choose? Because either way, pain exists. But one kind of pain leads to healing and the other just keeps you stuck. Now, what I'm about to say next might leave you thinking this is a fairy tale, or you might even say it's wishful thinking or fantasy. And I'll tell you, you're forgiven to think so, because I was the same. You're almost going to call me crazy in saying this, so here goes nothing. When you actually face your shadows, face your fears, and I mean all of them, and this takes a little time. Yeah, not forever, but it takes some time. When you face all your shadows, you will get to a point where your gross state of being or your general experience of life would have changed so much. Your vibration would have had risen so much that not only the way you see yourself would have gone through a 360-degree transformation, but that will also change the way you see everything around you and everyone around you. And this happens so fast that you will take some time to calibrate with these new lenses of seeing yourself and the world. You will be disoriented at first with disbelief, and this phenomena will feel nothing short of magic. Not only that, the universe will now have no choice but to organize everything in your surroundings to match your new vibration. Because you will have no choice but to attract everything for you and others that are in your life that matches this vibration. That's right. When your vibration rises, you will start attracting new things in your life, not just for you, but also for all those people around you. Let's unpack this slowly. it still blows my mind after seeing this happen to me so many times. So let's take the case of Michelle in our case, right? Assume Michelle has faced most of her shadows. Let's say she's done this work and say she's healed herself. Let's say 90% as an example. In other words, Michelle will realize that her journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of herself without the weight of over-responsibility or guilt or self-sacrifice. A healed Michelle will then still love deeply. She will still be a mother to the world. She still nurtures, she still cares. Because remember, this is high probability that this is a part of her higher self. So she will still be that mother to the world as she was before. But now, she does so without losing herself in the process, without feeling guilty, without feeling angry. The same thing now, the same mother archetype is now her higher expression. Okay, so what happens now? Or what happens to that inverted reality that Michelle once hated? Remember the feeling to trying to love the world one way, or, not reciprocated. This inverted reality now. This inverted reality now literally flips in Michelle's favor. It sort of inverts again in Michelle's favor. What does that mean? Well, one of the ways this might look like the world now starts loving her, prioritizing her, reminding her of how important she is, how valuable she is, in a way that doesn't make her guilty or angry or resentful anymore. And maybe this makes Michelle love everyone around her even more, except now this is not coming from her shadow, but it's coming from a light. Many other things can happen in addition to this. Let's say as Michelle's healing her shadows, after this new version of Michelle will magically start waking people up in her life to how they have been dependent on Michelle, and it will just magically invite them to grow. Michelle may suddenly start getting random calls from individuals sharing their revelation about how they need to start providing for themselves and not depend on Michelle, for example. Another thing that this might show up is Michelle might magically start meeting people who cares for her needs, love her just like she loved everyone, and really are a reflection of the new Michelle. Since Michelle now makes decisions based on what nourishes her, this new reality might suddenly, make people stop depending on her, or may wake up others as to how they've been so selfish. Another way this can show up is Michelle may not, this new Michelle is no longer saying yes when she really means no. And suddenly all those fears Michelle had that people will abandon me, those very people may come to her and say, I'm so glad you're looking after yourself. Now, of course, there may also be those who refuse to change. And because their vibration has remained the same compared to Michelle's, the universe will effortlessly remove such individuals from a life. Not through friction or in a resentful way, but they will just fall out of Michelle's life. Michelle will not need to do anything or force anything or control anything. Changes will just simply match Michelle's current vibration. Michelle, the new Michelle, let's say, is no longer drawn to partners now who manipulate or control her. And this may show up in many ways. Her partner, who's probably not chosen to grow, might magically find someone he likes or loves and leaves the relationship, or he grows less attracted to Michelle and leaves her. Or Michelle may just seek to walk out because of the personal power now that she feels. And this may happen in a cordial, compassionate manner without any animosity or resentment towards her. Or magically, her partner might suddenly have a wake-up call from the universe or something, and he might now start to become a recovering narcissist. Once again, if you notice, Michelle is not trying to make the reflection smile. She has simply learned to smile herself. And the reflection now matches that. Folks, this is the secret to life. You attract who you are unconsciously. Whatever you are being unconsciously is what you will always land up attracting. This is why, as you do this work, and maybe take this as a disclaimer, as you do this work, your profession, your relationships, your purpose, your diet, your taste for music, your attraction, your aversions, your partners, even the geography of where you live, and so much more, goes through a process of death and rebirth. Little by little, the lower expression dies and is replaced by a higher expression. That is what we have also called as becoming the higher self. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to leave with this. Life isn't about fixing the reflection in the mirror. It's going to be very painful if you try to, and it's going to be without its end. But it's really about transforming the one who is looking into it instead. See, when you heal, everything shifts. You don't even have to make anything shift. Everything just shifts on its own because the universe has no choice but to match your vibration. Your relationships, your reality, even the way the universe responds to you will change. The process isn't easy, I get it, but neither is staying stuck in suffering. The real question is, which path will you choose? Will you keep trying to rearrange the world outside? Or will you turn inwards and face what's been calling your attention for so long? Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. Like in our case, Michelle, the mother archetype, hasn't suddenly become someone completely different. She's just grown more and more of the mother archetype, but is now just the higher expression instead of the lower expression. And when you do that, the world has no choice but to meet you there. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep looking within because that's where the real magic happens. Thank you, much love, and take care.